Hello. Of all the characteristics that define life, the ability to reproduce is often the first one that comes to mind. As Schleiden and Swan told us, all cells come from pre-existing cells. In our reducing atmosphere, spontaneous generation of life just cannot occur. Without spontaneous generation, living systems must have a way to reproduce themselves in order to sustain the continuity of life. In most organisms, this ability to reproduce consumes a major portion of all metabolic energy. In other words, it costs a lot to reproduce. Now, when I was in college, I was poor. I mean, that was in the dark ages before financial aid. My folks were great in helping me pay for tuition and books, but they had limited resources as well, so I had to work a lot of hours to keep afloat. By chance, I ended up taking a chemistry class with a whole class full of student nurses. Now, in the dark ages, nurses were all females. So here I am, the lone male in a class of 30 or so nursing students. As you can imagine, chemistry quickly became my favorite class to go to, that is, not to do. Here, I was surrounded by all these potential dates, and I was too broke or always too busy working to ask anyone out. Well, one day, one of the nursing students asked me if I would volunteer to help her in the blood bank. Of course, I said yes, totally unaware that I was volunteering to be a pincushion to help her learn how to take blood. Well, after the initial shock, and with a lot of reward attached to the ordeal, I started giving blood regularly. Now, in those days, you receive $15 for every pint of blood. Now, $15 doesn't seem like a lot of money, but at that time, it meant I could take a girl out to dinner, end a movie, fill my gas tank with gas, and still have a little money left over. All right, so what is the moral of this story? Organisms will go to great lengths, even endure painful experiences, and expend great deals of energy for a chance at reproducing. Now, in the modern age, it is not uncommon for a couple to pay $50,000+ for the right human egg. A few years ago, a fashion model auctioned her eggs on eBay. The price reached over $3 million before eBay finally decided to pull the bidding for ethical and legal considerations. Just think of the money spent on cosmetics and clothing and flowers and candy and jewelry, all to improve one's chance of reproduction. This is not to mention the cost of raising the offspring if all that courtship costs pay off. Okay. Maybe this is a little cynical, but in all species, a great deal of living capital is expended in the act of reproduction and in raising of young. By this time in life, most of you understand the macroscopic hows of reproduction, and for most people, that is probably enough. We do not require a reproducer's license before we reproduce, like we require a driver's license before we drive. Although sometimes I think that might be a really good idea. The microscopic mechanisms of reproduction are something of a mystery to most people, probably because it's really the boring part. The basics of all reproduction is the ability to pass the instructions to build a new organism on to the next generation. We call these instructions the heritable material, which we now know as genes. In the last 100 years or so, we have come to describe this heritable material as being located in all reproducing cells, usually in the nucleus. And these are eukaryotic cells. And this is composed of chromosomes. In the last 50 years, we have described the chemistry of the chromosomes, and now know that they are composed of nucleic acids that we call DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid. And in the last 10 years or so, we have been able to begin to identify the chemical mechanisms of each component of the human DNA as to its specific coding of these heritable characteristics. The mechanisms by which heritable material, or genes, is passed from one generation to the next is the basis of the study of what we call genetics. Genetics tends to be studied at three different levels: molecular genetics, organismal genetics, and population genetics. We will look at each of these levels and how genetics affects the lives of organisms throughout the rest of this course. The study of genetics is a journey from the intercellular mechanisms of mitosis and meiosis to the elaborate behavioral rituals leading to intercourse. Mitosis, duplication, and meiosis, reduction, division, are the cellular level processes of reproduction. These two processes serve very different functions in reproduction. Meiosis, or cellular division, is the passing on to the next generation of a complete set of chromosomes, like when we make new skin cells or we grow plants from cuttings. Meiosis, on the other hand, is when we pass on only half of our chromosomes to the next generation, so that they can be combined with another half from a different organism. This is sexual reproduction. Okay, hey, it's Friday, it's date night. Maybe time to go out and do some biology field experience. Thank you guys. Talk to you next time.